Hello, welcome to the morning news. Our top story takes us to Brussels in Belgium, where the second EU-CELAC summit came to an end. For Venezuela and Cuba, the high-level meeting turned out a success as the 61 leaders signed a final declaration in solidarity with both Latin American nations, rejecting Washington's aggressions against both countries. But the summit was also an opportunity to strengthen the relations between both blocs. The European Union also took the chance to compete with China's increasing influence in Latin America, but fell short. The Asian country has pledged at least $250 billion in investments over the next 10 years. Unable to match this staggering figure, the EU sought other ways to avoid being marginalized, offering visa-free travel, deeper ties, and new trade deals.
The European Union has always supported CELAC, and the European Union will continue to support our friends. That's the reason why the Commission has announced over 800 billion in support for the region in the last 2 days.
The pro-tempore head of the LAC and president of Ecuador, Rafael Correa, praised agreements, but warned caution regarding free trade agreements.
Europe is fundamental for Latin America and the Caribbean. I believe that we are also important for Europe. In the case of Ecuador, Europe is our principal non-oil commercial market. That is why we should deepen our commercial ties. We all agree that through commerce, a modern economy becomes specialized, both domestically and abroad, where commerce should be for development. We need to be careful not to believe that a free market without controls, the opening of borders without controls, is beneficial all the time. Historical evidence tells us that this is not true, although the idea has become more like a religion than a science. We need to sign agreements for the development of our citizenry and for our small and medium businesses, which provide so much work for our countries.
Now we go to Colombia, where reform of the military criminal justice already approved by the Congress has triggered concerns. Our correspondent Natalia Margarita tells us that legal actions against the reform have already been announced by opponents that consider it to be a gate towards impunity.
It was April 2008 when Unionist leader Guillermo Rivera brought his daughter to the school for the last time. 3 months later, his body was found. Now, Rivera's daughter, SHAIRA, sees the latest military criminal justice reform as an affront for the relatives that, like her, have been seeking justice for what they believe are state crimes.
It is a major setback in terms of justice, as the reform means they would not be delving into the crimes committed by the police or the army in Colombia. As a result, many crimes such as forced disappearances or extrajudicial killing would remain under complete impunity.
For member of the Congress, Alirio Uribe, the biggest concern is how the concepts of legitimate target and collateral damage are being manipulated in the military justice reform to extend impunity for security forces.
They argue that within military operations, civilians can be confused with armed actors. Therefore, if a civilian gets killed, it was either a collateral damage or a legitimate target for being in the area where the military operation was taking place. I insist that it's simply a way to promote human rights violations in Colombia.
What is known in Colombia as the false positives scandal involves the murder of 5,700 civilians, whose bodies were then passed off as those of rebels to boost combat kill rates. Some 800 members of the security forces have been jailed so far, and lately 5 colonels were put under trial.
So when the first sentences against security forces members are being given, that's right when they start talking about the necessity of guaranteeing legal security for the military, as if it didn't exist before. Legal security has always existed, as it has always been clear that security forces cannot murder civilians.
Now, victims fear that cases that should be under the ordinary justice end up in impunity under the jurisdiction of military courts, right in a moment when truth and justice is at the center of Colombia's peace negotiations. Natalia Margarita, Telesur, Bogotá.
Families of Central American migrants are unifying efforts to search for their disappeared relatives that took the long and dangerous journey in search of the supposed American dream. Our correspondent in Honduras explains us why there are no support systems or any official data to assist their efforts.
Thousands of Central Americans lost contact with their families when they were trying to illegally enter the United States, and now several organizations from different countries in the region are trying to coordinate their actions and organize caravans to look for their relatives, some lost for more than a decade. They are also putting pressure on government to take more concrete actions in support of migrants.
In the caravans that we have made, we have found Hondurans and Salvadorians. A Honduran was found in a jail in the north of Mexico City. He had been 17 years without communication with his family. He had been tortured, accused and condemned for 50 years of jail. There was also a Salvadorian in the same conditions in the jail of Tapachula. It had been 12 years since he communicated with his family. Up until now, we have only been able to enter 6 prisons and found 3 men and women in the south of Mexico and 2 in the capital. But how many jails does Mexico have?
Alberto's brother disappeared in 2001, and since then he has been looking for him. Currently, 6 organizations are starting to work together to find the thousands of disappeared. The groups do not know the exact number of people missing, and many are feared dead.
There is no official data, but according to the migrant families, it could be thousands. For example, we are presenting from El Progreso, Yoro, 15 cases to the country's foreign minister. We have all the documentation, but the authorities have given us no answer, but we estimate thousands of people are disappeared.
The Central American region lacks any reliable information on migration, and the migrants lack support as they search for their loved ones. Gerardo Torres, Telesur, Central America.
And now to world news. We'll begin our coverage in the United States, where once again police brutality against minorities has been reported. But first, in Cleveland, Ohio, a judge has recommended that the police that killed young black boy Timmy Rice face trial. The municipal court judge, Ronald Adrien, found a probable cause that Officer Timothy Loman, who shot and killed a 12-year-old boy at a park, should face murder and other charges. The decision comes days after a group of local clergy and activists filed affidavits requesting action from the court in the death of Rice. Another case of serious civil rights violations at the hands of white police has once again been exposed through YouTube. A video taken by witnesses shows various police brutality beating Hispanic man named Jose Velasco in Salinas, a couple hours south of San Francisco. The Salinas police have tried to justify their actions, saying the man was high on methamphetamines and assaulted his mother. Rita Velasco has denied that her son was assaulting or hurting her. And in Miami, Florida, another non-black man has been killed by police. A homeless Fritz Severe was shot 5 times at a park in front of 60 children attending a summer camp. Witnesses say the man was at the park every morning and attempted to kill him. Police claimed that they were responding to a call violence disturbance and that the man was harmed with a stick. The chief of police, Rodolfo Llanes, has promised an investigation. In Germany, delegates representing 200 countries are working against the clock in the lead-up to the December Climate Change Summit in Paris. The present cycle has ended. They will meet again in August and October. The UN Climate Change Secretary Cristina Figueres said there has been interest in progress drafting the document to be presented in the French capital, but several nations expressed the contrary. They said time is running short, while differences are still notable regarding global warming and other issues. In Greece, over 10,000 people took to the streets. The protesters are concerned that the government of Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras might finally bow to pressure being exerted by its international creditors, who are intending to enforce austerity measures on the country and to discourage other leftist governments from emerging against the arbitrary control they wish to maintain. The protesters demanded better income, which was slashed in half after the massive European bailout of the country.
We want people to take matters into their own hands, to reject all the new bailout agreements, to take to the streets and fight for their benefits and lives.
Tsipras said he was still working to reach a deal with creditors aligned with his campaign promises to end austerity in Greece. He also said he would keep trying to bridge the differences between his government and its creditors.
The EU's political leadership realizes that we must give a viable solution on the possibility for Greece to return with social cohesion, to grow with a sustainable debt, a prospect that will restore security and stability not only for Greece but also for Europe.
Tsipras' hope of an agreement are dimmed by comments such as those of the European Council President Donald Tusk. He said Greece needed to be more realistic, suggesting that Tsipras' attempts to elude the reforms harmful to his country would not be successful.
It's for me very obvious that we need decisions, not negotiations now. And it's my opinion that Greek government has to be, I think, a little bit more realistic.
In Washington, the International Monetary Fund spokesman Gary Rice has said there are major differences between IMF and Greece remain. He said no progress regarding these differences have been made and added an agreement was far from being reached. If no deal is agreed by the next meeting scheduled for June the 18th, Greece will more than likely default on its end of June $1.6 billion payment. The 44th Copa America kicked off with the hosting team winning 2-0 against Ecuador in the opening match of the regional tournament that includes 12 teams. The goals came in the second half of the game. Arturo Vidal scored from the penalty spot. Eduardo Vargas took a pass from Arsenal for Alexis Sanchez for to double 6 minutes from the end. Chile will not face Mexico. Oh no, I mean, Ecuador will go against Bolivia.
I really wanted to score with the Chilean selection, and it's better if I help my team get points, so now we need to continue improving and try to do our best.
More on these on our website, telesurtv.net/English. Thank you for watching and have a nice weekend.